First of all, thank you for taking the time, and there may be a couple of people that are will arrive late. We actually had a few more register, and I don't know if they are delayed or just forgot, but for whatever reason, I am recording today. And the reason that I'm recording is we already had a few people who said by health reasons they weren't able to come. They actually are property owners in the historical household district, and they really wanted to be here. So I'm excited to welcome you all. Really excited to be able to present this, and this is being made possible through a USDA grant. So if you would mind accommodating me, because it's a grant, I have to be accountable for everything I do. You know how federal grants are. So I'm going to pass around a sign-in, and if you could sign in, I'd appreciate it. And I'm not being nosy when I ask like the number of jobs impacted, but that's one of the metrics I have to hit. So I'm going to pass this around, and if you don't mind helping me make sure everybody gets signed in. And then if there are any questions, like you came for a reason, you know, if there's something that's burning that you want to know, please feel free to fill out a question, and we'll just drop it in here. But then at the end, we'll look at them and we'll see that we clicked through our answer all. And if you didn't, we'll go back and ask them. But we're small enough, either way you want to do it, it's good. I did have a couple of people that I spoke to who said, I can't come, but make sure you ask this question. So there's 2 of them already in there. Okay, so this is just the introduction, and I'm not sure if everybody knows everybody. Does everybody know everybody?
Yes.
And that's pretty much the newest person on the block. If she knows everybody, then we all know everybody. Okay. So thank you for making it a priority, especially elected officials and others. At the end, if you'd like to comment, City Councilwoman, Mayor, Main Street, at the end, if you'd like to add, please don't hesitate. Okay. The reason all this is going on is, most of you know, but we'll do it, it's kind of how we're gonna proceed. We're going to just go a short little background, and then George will cover the cultural and historic tax credits. We'll do a Q&A, and then we'll look at whether we need some other seminars or other people might be interested in coming before we close. But this is it. Morgan City, Berwick spent a lot of money, and a study was published, and we keep going back to this and reading from this document. It talked about, you know, just don't take this and look at it, but there's some money that might help you to help businesses. So we applied 2 years in a row for a rural business development grant, because that's what this book said to do. And we were awarded this year a rural business development grant, which allows us to put on this training, which, you know, says reach out to businesses and make it what they want, you know, make it meaningful, make it have some kind of impact. Looking a little further, the book also said, this is straight from the book, it said Morgan City and Berwick need to work together to develop their downtown. So I don't think anybody would, you know, say we don't. So we need to work together. And I like the word symbiotic, because I used to teach science, and symbiotic meant a lot to me. It means we need each other, we work together. And it should be thought of as one entity with just different specialties, like we specialize. You know, we can do a lot of the same things, but Morgan City is the retail commercial hub of the Cajun Coast, and Berwick is the regional hub of recreation and festivals. Does that mean it can't have coffee shops and it can have anything it wants? But, you know, kind of like, we know the commercialization is really important. So, but also businesses and other venues are also important on both sides of the river. So symbiotic, helping each other. And then just huge swaths of property when you talk about a cultural district. Really, really large. A lot of people in a cultural district. But then you go smaller, and you talk about historic. And we did have some inquiry by a couple of people in the historic district about attending today. And, you know, when you cut Lawrence Park in half and you think maybe Cajun Kuyon Creations that's down there is in the historic district, it's not. So, you know, even though we visited them, they're not in the historic district. You know, so really small, very small, but very focused. So the thing that really is, are you eligible? Are you eligible? And obviously this place was eligible. And it went from looking okay to looking really great. So, you know, you gotta figure out what applies to you and what doesn't apply. And the nice thing about it is we can put it down really to the local level, to you and me, and what do we look like. So we got our local talent presenter, and I'm gonna embarrass Joy just a little bit. Maybe, if I can do a little slide, or maybe he's sending some waves this way. But I can tell you about Joy. Whether or not the slide wants to cooperate. He has a BS in finance, which I think I could never get a BS in finance. I'm not a numbers person. And he also has his Juris Doctorate law degree from Loyola. I thought he was an LSU guy, but he's a Loyola guy. And he's got quite a few years of helping many, many people with their wills and their closings and their just all kind of things. But something unique about him is he's almost the one and only person that's ever gone through this process and made something happen. So we thought we'd start small today and kind of personalize it, and we're very fortunate that Joy's here and that he's willing to share with us. So, Mr. Bourgeois.
All right. So, yeah, I guess I was, of course, Monica said it was a grant. You never know with Miss Monica if you're doing things for the community or for a grant, but thank you. It is grant funded. It is a, you know, I guess this is something that at first, when she first asked about it, I was kind of like, you know, who does it apply to? And it's not a, you know, is it a worthwhile subject? And maybe the first thing is just, you know, who can apply. You know, the big thing, I think people are scared of. Monica first off showed the historic district. You know, that's the doubling of the credit. That's the only difference is if it's you get the federal and the state credits, if it's in the historic district or it's a nationally recognized historic structure. So, you know, I was thinking, you know, I heard somebody said something about Shannon School, and you know, Shannon School would have to be a developer to get the state and the federal credits, and it had to be, you know, designated a historic site. That one seems like, you know, that's a process. But I could talk about it, you know, which I didn't look at the historic credits because I didn't think I was going to be over the historic credits have a different level of complexity. They require your acquisition cost your project's got to be at least half your acquisition cost. And so, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to get there. You know, I thought that I did, by the way. I would have gotten there if I'd have and kind of in hindsight, you probably could have gone back and applied for it again. You know, it's that is again when Miss Mancuso asked me to speak, I'm like, yeah, most everybody in this room's read the materials. Y'all know better than I do. But there is something about hit or miss. Yes, sir.
I just want to go back to the beginning.
Yes.
In your situation, you applied for a grant for your office?
No, well, I think, no, sir. Well, the historic tax credits on grants, they're tax credits. So that's the biggest thing about them. They're a credit. So if I owed $5,000 and I got $1,000 of credits, I only have to send a check in for $4,000. So that's the nice, it's not, there was no grant money. Now there's a Morgan City facade grant that y'all on Main Street grant that we you know could have done too, but this is just what we're talking about today is historic tax credits. Yes, and so and that's what I was kind of getting to, that you know the historic tax credits you know started off just for the historic tax districts in the National Register of Historic Places. I think in 2002, 2006 or something, somewhere in there, they opened up to the cultural districts. And so Monica had presented that little picture of all the areas. Oh, here it is. It covers a lot. This is Morgan City downtown, a lot of Morgan City downtown, a lot of Berwick downtown. And so when I was doing the presentation, I was hoping Colleen wasn't going to come here because I didn't mention this to her. But, you know, when you're thinking about things, you just don't. And there's I guess what I did want to, you know, just kind of go through the basics, I guess, with you, of that. The certification process, you know, what they say is, the state says it's the same as the National Historic Preservation people. The big difference in the state and the Fed that I saw was there's only got to be $10,000 in cost for the state. I don't know that you know, the federal, again, I had said it's half that, you know, your acquisition cost or your depreciable basis in the property that you have, you know, without the property. And so, you know, that's a much easier level to do. The other thing about and you gotta forgive me, I left my little notes at the office, but you know, so the cultural district and the downtown development district, you know, I think those are big areas, and it's got to be rental or income producing property, you know, so if you have a single owner dwelling, you can't, but realistically, if you want to rent something out, you could. You know, anything that you rent out, you could. I saw like the Pattersons have that house. You know, they asked about credits. Well, no, because one of the kids is going in there, and they're not going to charge them any money at all. And then, you know, the other big thing is, even if it's in a cultural district, it's got to be sort of recognized as a historic structure, and it's over 50 years, and which I guess in hindsight, again, I'm looking at this stuff, kind of getting ready for this meeting, going, how did I qualify? Because, you know, the definition is sort of like what is art? You know, it's art, it's what I think it is. You know, it's like it's the eye of a beholder almost, is what's historically correct. You know, these preservation people certainly have a better idea what that is, but May Falcon had I don't know if y'all remember, she had that big front on that building, and that wasn't historically correct, and I don't know if they would have, I don't think they would have given me the credits with that frontage that she had on there. In 1990s, you know, I think Virgil bought that building, put a different front on there. That they deemed it to be, well, he pulled that off, May Falcon's off, and he kind of fixed the downstairs up differently, but you know, they did go through and look at it and said, yeah, it's historically close to what you want to do. You know, so I mean, I'm looking down at who could this apply to. You know, it's old Lafayette Electric building bought by Cajun Breakers. It's Colleen's building, the new one she's looking at. You know, there's Lafayette, there was some old abandoned warehouses they turned into apartments that you wouldn't think would qualify, but you know, the facade was enough for them to go back in and qualify it as still getting that historical significance. I was looking down the street. There's some abandoned apartment buildings in Morgan City on First Street, I guess, that would be, you know, look like candidates if somebody bought them. You know, it is, and then there's a question: is that enough? You know, the idea with these credits are that they're going to get some of the downtowns developed and the historical older city centers, you know, are going to develop out of this. The historic preservation folks cite Iberia, the New Iberia downtown, which I think y'all seen that it is looking better. That there's a Paul Allen, who's an architect there, started that off, and they redeveloped a lot of buildings downtown New Iberia. So, you know, that's what I wanted to come with y'all. What I wanted y'all to come away with today is any of those income producing buildings that are over 50 years old, you may want to take a shot at you know, suggesting they fill out the Board 1 application. That's the first application. You don't, you know, the threshold test, they says over 50 years. it's old, it gotta be historic, it's gotta be above 10 grand. But if you don't fill out the application, you know, there's no chance of you getting any money. It doesn't start, you know, to receive any money until you submit the application into the state for review. And so I don't know if we gave those, if y'all want to look through.
How do you know if it's historic?
That's what I was saying. It's like, to me, it's over 50 years. It's some sort of different. You know, clapboard houses have will meet that definition from the 40s, because that's how, that was the style that they made at the time.
Right.
It's some contributing factor. We'd like it to be, you know, they had the Brooker House in Morgan City. I mean, I think there's only one in Morgan City, but there's a town hall, the city hall, there's the Trinity Episcopal Church, and then Brooker House on 2nd Street.
What about those houses?
Those are on National Historic Registers. Those we know.
own a big building that's on the National Historic Register?
Sir?
It's not on the National Historic Register.
Wait,
So
I'm sorry.
our district, the way that the historic district is written, it has specific buildings that are pointed out in the, like when they submitted the paperwork. But the way ours is written is that every building of the appropriate age at that time is a contributing factor to the historic district, so it qualifies for
No,
it.
what I'm saying is we submitted it for inclusion on National Historic Register, and the grant got approval. We got a plaque on the building that says that.
But you're in the historic district, where you are. You talking about over here? And you talking about on
207 Railroad, the two-story
Yeah.
building.
You're in,
But
aren't
if
you
you go
away?
in the register, it's not
It's not
showing.
listed.
But I think it's specific to the district, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're in the district, every building in the district qualifies, from what I understand.
Yeah. And-
Every building in a historic district,
Is considered contributing to the district.
so you
Yeah.
Right,
apply.
it just doesn't show on the list of
Yeah.
the National Register, because I looked at it.
And the
last week.
listing that they have on there
Yeah.
is from when they originally put in the national, the historic register for the district, so it's,
So they still qualify?
yes.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
well,
nice.
and you would qualify for both.
Mhm.
That's the nice thing. You would qualify, if you already did your building, or somebody wanted to lease it or whatever, you would get national and state credits potentially.
Exactly,
Yeah, I ain't doing nothing with it. I'm not doing anything with the building, but if you were, if y'all vacated it, somebody else wanted to come in and remodel it, make it a five and dime store, those costs could be submitted for approval.
Yeah.
Or would they submit for approval as a tax credit or as a grant?
Well, it's not a
It's not a
grant,
grant.
it's a tax credit.
Application.
Right, so it,
So, but let me ask you
yes,
this. Tax credits are only good if your business is making a profit, right?
no. The difference thing about a tax credit, these tax credits are you can sell them. So some of the, if you're not making money, you sell them for less. So it's 90 cents on the dollar, or so they'll give you. Again, my example, I got $1,000 in tax credits. I may sell them to somebody who needs them for $900.
Okay.
You know, that's what happens. So it's not you don't have to have that much income to
So
benefit from it.
the monies you spend on that,
Mhm.
do they have to be on the exterior or on the interior?
Anywheres in the building,
The tax
you
credits
can,
can
if
be
you're
there.
rehabilitating a historic structure, they'll give you that. Some of the problems with you know, what I think people don't use them is they don't wanna do something that's maybe historic. I wanna put on vinyl clad, double clad windows that look way different than the wooden ones or something, you know, that's.
No.
An
Well,
example,
the question I have for you, you know, we just did our renovation on that house. Can I say what that cost?
it's not retroactive,
20%.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. You gotta file your application,
yeah.
you know, regardless of what you're doing.
And when you submit that, and one of the reasons we did, I knew there was a $50,000 grant
From the
that's
state,
pending or
yes.
coming up. The requirements are so specific.
Yes, and that's for this too. It goes by the National Park Service, Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So you have to strictly adhere to that in order to receive the credits. Usually when people do them, he's a lawyer, so he can read all the fine lines, but like Eric Eric Lind and Bill Cephalou have hired someone to handle the paperwork.
So for instance, just an example, we have that upstairs that's empty, it's vacant now. We'd like to maybe turn it into a short-term rental. There's no air conditioning up there.
Mhm.
If we put air conditioning up there, that's not historic.
Yeah, it would qualify.
Yeah.
It would qualify.
Yeah. I mean, that's the easy one. That's a capital
Like
improvement.
plumbing and, right.
So,
Anything that's a capital improvement, if your building qualifies as historic and you're not changing the facade, you know, that you're gonna get you know, if you file your application and you submit it, you know, they'll review it, you pay your fee. There is something about, I think Colleen asked, what's historic? You know, sometimes when you're looking at it, you know, you pay a fee and they'll come down there and tell you. I took a risk in the fact that I didn't ask for their review until after I was finished, and they could have nicked me, the bricks. I don't know if you've been able to build the bricks on the side and the front are exposed. That is not historic in an office building or a 5 and dime, and they all, because it was such a big building and a small part of the project, they said that's okay. You know, the floorboards on the deck were synthetic, but you couldn't see, you know, on the front, but you can't see them, so they let that go too. But you know, I think I had we were in a rush to get things done, and so we made a few mistakes. I put French doors on the top second story window, and they said that wasn't correct. We have the advantage of Morgan City, and I think Berg has a little bit of the archives, and you can go look at older pictures, and you know, they'll want to see that your building kind of stays looking like it did back then, or you know, too.
that's on the exterior.
Yes, sir. Right.
Okay, which I think we pretty much.
Interior,
But on the interior, I mean, do we have to return it to its original state on the interior? Or can we do more?
Well,
Interior
to some extent.
they
Just-
want you to stick to it as much as possible. For
Yeah.
example, like Bill Cephalou Jr. bought the old, Nelson building on the corner of Greenwood and Front Street. If you go in it, it's basically a shell, but it has tin. It's all rusted out and gross, but he hired someone from the state. She came in and she's like, you need to keep as much of this as possible. If you can't keep it, find something similar to it to replace it. So it's a product, it might not be tin, but it could be tin with wallpaper
Mhm.
or something that
Right.
resembles what's there, like what was original to the building that you might not be able to get now, or it's just exponentially expensive. So they want you to adhere to the guidelines as much as possible, and that's why it's smart to have somebody who, like, I have books of the guidelines, and we have the link on our website. It's extensive. They have rules for everything.
Yeah, and that's what I thought the main point was for anybody taking away. I mean, y'all are all, you know, kind of in the business of it, no offense, but, you know, in the council or whatever, but, you know, it's, I almost think like you try it once you develop your plans, you submit your application, you take your pictures, that's part of that little thing, and you see if they come down and give you, you know, it's worth it above 30 grand or something, you know, of a project to try to see if they'll do that, especially when you have something separate like that. I would, you know, that's a separate part of your building you open up to them.
But he's qualifying because he's in the historic district. We're not.
You're qualified because you're in a cultural district,
So-
but you have to look at the age of your building specifically. You know, is it income producing? Are we,
75 years old.
yeah, 75 years old? Does it represent something that looks historical to you? That we don't build houses like that anymore, is my definition of it. She's got a different, you know, got the books to back it up and what that means.
It's
Right.
really
I'm not
kind of
exactly
what the
sure.
state decides.
You know, I know my cousin went through, the reason I wasn't gonna do it is my cousin went through this and they spent a bunch of time and they're trying to piece back together
Yeah.
molding on the walls and stuff like that. And thank goodness mine was cleaned out. You know, a lot of that stuff was, so I
Right.
didn't have to worry about it. I mean, it was
Well, I'm just wondering, because I have the building across the street, and I'm kind of at a standstill. I don't know if I should knock it down, or I'd love to restore it, but it's gonna cost
I mean,
A lot.
and that's what I was saying, if you have plans, I think you know, you can take I would submit the application and see if 20% makes it, you know, on a $400,000 project, that's 80 grand. As long as it's not landscaping, parking, you know, and the interior components, you know, so if it's HVAC, it qualifies, but it doesn't include furniture for whatever project you're trying to do. But on a $400,000 project, $80,000 on a 15-year loan is $600 or something a month, $650. You know, that can make the difference between a project being worthwhile or not worthwhile. And then with the federal credits, it's even better. But the federal credits, you know, for your building is possible. You know, you had somebody that was Duval Arthur's mama lived in that house, and so it's historically to these local people, it's a historical building. You got to go apply to the National Register to get that designation. They give you the designations, lots of things, and then you got another 80,000 maybe. You know, I don't know that building had anything historical in it.
The one that I redid,
The one that you have.
or
Once
the
you
one I'm
re-
about to do.
Yeah, one you have, right.
So it's too late for the old building.
Yes, you can't,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
retroactive.
Right.
So even if you apply for it and you start doing work
It's already
before
done.
you get word that you got it,
Right.
they'll take that away from you.
That was one of the questions. They said,
Then
what if you
our
have
grants work the same.
just started, you're not finished?
You can file, but it's just from there. That's what happened to us.
You can
know,
file.
We
Well,
started and then
what's-
filed the application and said, oh, okay, well, that doesn't, we just didn't get credit for the work
Right.
we did previously to it.
Okay, so it's
So
still.
what's considered started, like gutting it?
Oh, no,
Gutted
just
it.
whatever, until you put in the application, it doesn't qualify. You know, they don't count it, you know, and that's just on the back end, when you get when you go to submit your credits.
And what's the application fee run about?
It's 1.5%, you know.
Which would be what?
It's a very small, of the credits that would be owed, so it's where is it? Oh, I think I put it in the back.
Can you give us like an example, like if you,
It was
$100,000.
less than $2,000 on whatever I had, so, let's see, this is, oh yeah, a good deal less, 1,500 or something, but it couldn't have been. This is, the fees are 250 under 100, and then 100 to 500 is 250, it's 1.5% of the credit. So if you're gonna get $80,000, 1% would be $800. You know, I'm just using let's just use 400, because I think when you get above 500 too, you know, you have to start involving professionals, you gotta have a professional accountant, you know, the architect. Architects are a big thing here. I had a list of them as a handout, just because, you know, they can tell you if your building's gonna be
so I'm just
historic or
gonna go
not.
back.
Mine was easy.
As I told you, I don't do numbers, but $800 to see if you're eligible?
Pretty much, yes.
Just have-
You know, it's an application fee. They'll come down and they'll review the building and tell you what you do and what you have.
So you have to be very serious about, you're gonna move forward, you're gonna develop, and your development's gotta be a nice cost, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah,
I
because
do
you,
see the tax credits used a lot in bigger cities like New Orleans and Baton Rouge and stuff like
What
that.
about-
where the buildings cost millions of dollars to renovate.
New Iberia or Donaldsonville, because those are
I
ones
mean,
that.
they did that too. I mean, I
And-
mean, any building, you know, that's what I was trying to figure out. What do you tell people? Because it ended up being worthwhile for me, even though I had to replace that double French door. You know, I would have come out ahead. But on a big project, it makes a difference to getting some of these things done. It's you know, it was easier again for me because I knew mine was historic. Well, I thought so until they told me that about the brick. Joanna Gaines thought it's pretty. You know, these people, that's basically what she said too.
That's it.
She said even though Joanna Gaines said that's nice, and people like that now, that's not historic, and so we're gonna make you cover that. In fact, in the back stairwell, I had some of that off, and she said, well, I'm gonna make you cover that up.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't a stucco, we fixed it.
And you applied for both historic and cultural?
No, it's the same thing. Historic.
Oh, one is
You know,
just
you hear them
cultural.
talking about
Okay,
it,
it's
it's
the same.
historic, you hear them talking about it's commercial. I think it's just as a program that was originally started as historic, they call it that. but it's just a check on the box on the,
all-
on where you live, on that application.
Your renovations, does it have to be the entire structure, or can it be a portion of it?
They give me portions of it. You know, they wouldn't like if you see you put it into use from these, that's the whole idea is to be income producing, so that's a caveat too.
So if I had a building that was half done and half not done,
You still could go see.
like where
Fact- fact
California
that-
used to be, where Abigail Studio is, her side is renovated, but the other side is terrible, so.
Yeah, you could still do it because you may lease that to a different building, or you may charge Abigail more money,
Right.
to rent the whole thing. It's a question about, is it it's still gotta be financially feasible, it's just, this gives you, and I wonder if it's 20%, is it 18% when you pay, when you do this? I had, a lady in my office, one of the secretaries went through, we haven't gotten to that, but you have to comply with some rules, like we had to put all the bills on a spreadsheet and certify what went to the building and what went to Michael Bourgeois for computers or whatever, There was stuff like that, that you get involved in.
Did the tax office with the state help you at all? Because if you call them, they'll answer a lot of questions, because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand
Yeah.
what you need to do and if you would qualify. and
That's a good, that's my whole point is, hey, submit it and see, because they'll come down, they'll tell you, you can call them and ask them. I have an amendment sheet somewhere too, that if you, which is the point of it is, if you file your application and then you change it and you put in, 2 units instead of, or you put in 4 units instead of 2, they'll let you amend it back. But if you don't have your application in, it doesn't really matter. And so it's, that was helpful. We started off on the bottom floor with the offices, and that's how I filed the application, was at the bottom floor, offices, and the big empty space, and we were gonna tear up some of the property, and then we filed an amendment to go upstairs. When I got an architect to do it professionally, there's some of that, that helped out. I tried to get I was interested to see if somebody who, like with the Rebo's house, that's an expensive undertaking, and you almost you want to see if it would be worth it if you're going to spend a whole bunch of money redoing it. I don't know. How far that goes, but it's certainly a historic structure also. It would qualify for both things.
Did you have any issues with ADA compliance?
I did. The state fire marshal was helpful with that too. You call them up, it's a historic building. I couldn't do. I have a motor lift. In there it's a dumbwaiter, bring up cargo and stuff. It's just a hoist, and the architect told me you couldn't keep that. You gotta get rid of it. And he's like, you sign off on it saying historically accurate. They let us keep that. They let us a couple things, that wasn't terrible. They'll let you sign off on it if it's important enough. And again, I was just like, I'm not gonna carry up the sofa on my back. I'm keeping that, and they let me.
But like our building, you don't have an elevator.
I don't have an elevator.
It's required.
Now, the stairs in the building were not level. They're not seven inches on the back. Those are the stairs that were there in the building weren't, and they're still there. We didn't have to take them up and put new stairs down. Now on the front ones, the front set of stairs that we put in have a landing that turns into the lobby. Because of the way that you have to run for ADA compliance, the stairs. Those were new, so we complied. But I don't know if anybody remembers. I won't say anybody was here then, but Gerson Saltz Dr. Saltz was up there, and that's where his offices were upstairs, and his stairs went straight down. He had them in the same spot, but they just went straight down out the front window, so there was no turn. And so they weren't ADA compliant. I would have been interested to see what they did, but anyway, the rules changed a little bit. It wasn't a big factor, the bigger factor was the fire code. You had to put a sprinkler system in there, or a lot of the sensors. We ended up having to
Now,
do.
does the historic agency, whatever that does that, they're concerned about fire codes and sprinklers or any of that?
Any new building, any kind of new construction, the fire marshal's got to come above a certain square footage. And I don't know if you would be hitting that or not, to be honest with you. I hit that. I was trying to limit my square footage to the downstairs, right underneath the level. So it must have been 6,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think we're about 1,200 square feet.
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Oh, yeah, so you may not even be affected by it. I don't know. You gotta ask the planning and zoning guy in town, whether you're affected by it or not.
Okay.
But that was another thing I tried to get around.
I got
Supposed
around
to do.
sprinklers.
What was that?
I got around sprinklers.
Yeah, right, because you got the limit, and so they
I
work
pulled
with
the
you. Right.
floors out,
Huh?
and I don't have a working kitchen, so.
Yeah.
But that was a huge expense. That would have been $70,000 more.
How much more?
70.
Yeah.
Plus, that's not including all the cooking stuff in the kitchen, which I eliminated all that.
Mhm.
No cooking. Warming. Just warming.
So, I was gonna just, there's a, the application, I don't know if I'm just gonna go through that a little bit. It wasn't there's nothing really difficult about it. It's filling in the name of the property, the address, whether you're in a cultural district or downtown development district, either one of those would count. Who's handling the project, who would be doing that? Is that the owner, is that the contractor, is that the architect, who owns it? And this application page, you can describe the building itself as the next page. They wanna hear some detailed things about your building, not just that it's a, 8,000 square foot building like I tried, to do again. You just wanna put, you took a picture of it, it says what it says, but again, the nice thing about ours is, and yours is an historic district, and you don't have to go be elaborate about the history and stuff, because they do have it. Morgan City Main Street, the cultural district, when the historic district was applied for, all that stuff is in a database.
Yeah, they're just.
And they have it, so that was a little bit easier. A statement of significance, again, it's a contributing factor or representative of 1900 style construction, what I think I put was 6. They do want you to show on the map where it is. The photographs are the big thing. I always I've told somebody, and I thought it was cute, that these are the people that color between the lines, in first grade. I was never one of those. I don't know if I ever was, but they do they got the money, and so you gotta follow their rules, so they're particular about the pictures and how you present things. That's why I added that little
Main Street.
map in there, or that little guideline, because that seems to be the biggest thing. You tell a story, you give them the pictures that they want, is like every room, front and side. If there's the windows, or you can tell us more why, the historical significance in the windows, or a fireplace, some kind of architectural features inside. I'm like, mine didn't have much of that. So I still took pictures of the rooms, but that was it. I think the fact that it's pillars, the way the building isn't on the walls, there's the pillars and there's the brick walls on the side, was different. We did that. And then the part 2 of the application, so the part 1 gives you your historical significance. They'll come out for that. If it's under 500,000, you pay $250. They can do it. They can come out at that time. It seems like a waste of money if you don't do the part 2, which is filing with your plans and if you have specifications. The architects again would make the presentation certainly nicer, or more understandable than just, you know, we're gonna rip out, I wouldn't say rip out any walls, Damon, but, you know, we're gonna put in central air, we're gonna put in this how it's gonna go, they wanna see the HVAC drawings. I drew the electrical, no, that's not true, at first I did, and then we, you know, kind of what the changes were, but, you know, present that to them, and then they'll come down and they'll evaluate, you know, what you're doing.
So go back to that $250.
This is the application fee, but you sort of have an estimate at the time that you make your plans, you know, you got a quote on the work, so you pay your fee, you pay an estimated fee. Mine was over, I paid a little bit more at the end than I had thought about.
In the tax credit amount, is it a percentage of what you spend, or is it the full amount that you spend?
Yeah, it's 20%. So you get, if you spend $100,000, you get $20,000 tax credits. And so those tax credits, you know, like you said, you may not have $20,000 in state income tax liability, that you have to use that in the first 5 years. So if you complete it in 2021, you would have to be finished using by 2026. And if you're using $20,000 in state income tax credits, you know, very good. You know, you're probably not. So you're selling them. State is a buyer of last resort. They'll buy them for 85 cents on the dollar. So they buy those tax credits from you for $17,000. You should be able to go to somebody that does a register. You know, that is something where you would need your accountant to help you kind of do that. There's forms the state of Louisiana has. There's forms with the feds have. If you're going to do that you would, you know, they give you a form that recognizes the amount of credits you have, and then if you sell them, whatever the business is sell them to Monica Mancuso for 92 cents on the dollar, you know, there's a little sale form.
Is that kind of like mineral rights?
Ma'am?
It's like kind of like selling mineral rights?
Yeah, I mean, it's just selling. You have this credit at the state of Louisiana. There's a central registry. It says, you know, Chapel Eye Services has, you know, $50,000, whatever, and I'm selling off 10 to Monica Mancuso or whatever. And I sold it to her. You have to put down you sold it to her for $10,000 for $9,200. You still that answer the question?
So what are some other things that cultural qualify? Like what else can we do? Since we
Well,
don't have historical.
What you mean cultural? I'm not.
Well, we're a cultural district, we're not historical.
Well, no, the cultural district can do the same thing. But it's with
Besides, yeah, but
buil-
besides all that, like,
buildings over 50 years old. Only thing else the cultural district does, I think, is you can sell art that you
Yeah,
make.
original
Abigail's
art.
art doesn't pay sales tax. Are y'all doing that?
like at the Grapevine when they sell,
Original
Art.
artwork was tax exempt. The state actually removed their tax exemption, so you have to pay state taxes. St. Mary Parish still has the tax exemption,
Oh,
but
fun.
you have to file a certain kind of paperwork per individual piece. So we've talked about doing it for our markets and for like the market store and stuff like that. But it would be, say I'm the artist selling to you, I would have to fill out paperwork, he would have to fill out paperwork and submit it to the parish to be able to not pay your little bit of taxes. So
they make everything so worth it. It's
It's
not.
not
a
bad.
lot of people don't
Man,
make
they
it
got-
because it's not worth it.
Difficult, right.
Yeah.
It might be if you had a significant piece of art.
If it's a significant piece of art, then yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know of any, I'll say Dorothy Pratt's, whatever, like, you know, the national, they're selling a painting at Christie's auction house for $35,000.
Yeah.
That would be a
worth
difference.
it, but
Huh?
that would be worth it.
Yeah.
but-
I mean, if
That's
the
right.
state brings it back to where they're doing tax exemptions, I would say yes, it's worth it to do it for markets and things like that, but the parish has implemented this process that you have to go through to be able to.
I just thought that was New Orleans, like, you know, we're not gonna tax the street artists when I saw that, or something, like, we're not getting paid anyway, let's exempt them. I don't know, or encourage them to sell stuff. But I mean, to answer your question, the cultural district, I mean, that's what they're giving you right now till by the way, it's till 2025. You know, so you got a project on the books, you know, if we could get a big project in here, I don't know what properties are vacant or lacking income producing besides the wheelhouse or whatever you call it, Cephalus, and is it, what is the wheelhouse? Cephalus, and then, you know, you got Eric Lynn,
Farciola had actually, he looked into doing the tax credits. He wanted to take the building back to kind of what it looked like in the early 1900s. And the state said, well, that's not historic. Now your mid-century modern facade is what's historic because it's more than 50 years old.
It's been there so long, right?
So
Yeah.
they don't want him to take it back. Like, they will not give him the tax credits to take it back to where he wanted.
Yeah, and that's a problem, you know, he wanted to do something, and he can, so he's doing something different. I thought that would have been an easy go, but then, yeah, it was much prettier building when you look at the old pictures
lot
than
prettier
whatever Mr.
before.
Leon's dad did, or whoever did that thing to us, but it's,
I can't even find pictures of our buildings. I've asked everyone, I've
Have
been
you checked with the
archives,
state library?
did not check them, but
Try
I've
to
checked
contact them
Franklin,
and
Morgan
see.
City.
Because if you have like a library card through St. Mary Parish, you can use it with the state library and they'll allow you to check their archives and stuff. Because that's where we got Sanborn maps from,
Oh,
for,
okay.
Bill.
do we have Sanborn maps for Morgan City?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
The only ones I've had
I think
access
they have
to
in the
were from
archives,
the
don't they?
state.
Is what?
I've really had the ones from
No,
the
no,
state.
but we have them from Morgan
Oh, yes,
City.
yes.
Sanborn maps cover Morgan City?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't have to submit any of that because I'm in the historic district.
Yeah.
So it made it easier.
The reason we looked on for Bill, there's that garage door on the back of the building, and the woman that he's hired is telling him that it's historic, he needs to keep it. He doesn't want a garage door in the back of the building, so we were trying to find in Sanborn maps what was there, because it'll tell you where there was doorways and windows and things like that on the map. And we see that there was some kind of.
Duval went in that building a lot when he was a sheriff. I'm sure. He could tell you.
Mine?
In the wheelhouse.
Oh,
In the wheelhouse, yeah, I did.
See, you have other buildings, it's not in the historic district, but we tried to get it into the National Register, Taylor Industrial, because it was the old ice house.
ah,
But it has the original walls of the ice house interior, but because they've changed the exterior so much, it doesn't qualify.
Mhm.
I think they just make it difficult, just on
They do.
purpose.
And
Because
that's, a
then
lot of
people
people
just
are
give up and
afraid
just
of
don't do
it.
it.
Right,
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid to
I'm
even
gonna
try
ask
because
Earl
of the
to
process.
show.
yeah.
That was his daddy's
Adam?
barber shop. Yeah,
Adam Robichaux?
that was his daddy. And he lives in his daddy's house, so I'll ask him if he's got.
He's
any
still
pictures.
alive?
Oh, yeah.
Oh heck, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
The
anybody
ice
was
house
still
buildings
alive
on
in
the
that
side.
house.
It would be cool. I mean, there's nothing else to do with it. But I didn't know.
I
how-
want it to be a brewery one day.
That would
Yeah,
be so.
oh, there you go. Somebody,
It should
yeah,
be.
because, you know, that building is
It's
fantastic,
architect,
it's got a slab, it's
That's-
fantastic, but how do
I ended
you?
up switching.
I mean,
How do
the
you-
walls, the original walls,
first
it looks like they
one.
just drove
Gutted all, and
through
they
them
had come
As
second
ways.
to
Really?
The brick walls are
They've got it all,
like
and say,
3
what
feet
can we
thick
do with it?
Wow,
on the interior.
yeah.
Which
Oh,
building,
wow.
I've got
That's
people on the
fascinating.
wall
What's that?
that's been-
Which building was
The
that?
old ice house is Taylor Industrial now, but because they put so
Yeah.
much metal facade on the outside,
Yeah.
it wouldn't qualify as a historic structure,
Pull it off.
which is crazy.
Uh,
We're talking about expanding the historic district.
Right,
We're gonna try to get a grant to be able to do that and have surveyors come and include like Second Street, because a lot of the historic homes, that's where they are. Front Street up to a certain point.
Yeah,
Shane
'cause-
School.
cause why was,
Orange
Lafayette,
Park.
Lafayette Electric
Yeah,
Building, whatever that
Lawrence
was,
Park.
isn't included.
At the time when they made the historic district, recreational areas weren't allowed to be in it.
Also
like to change
carved out
some of
some
this.
homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would qualify now.
Wait, I'm
They
sorry.
also carved out little pieces that people didn't want to be included.
Right.
So you might have a block, and then this building's not included.
Or some that were considered intrusions because they weren't historic at the time, but now
Now they are, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, 50 years.
I mean, it's
Well,
been,
I
what,
forgot
30
about that, I don't know
years
if you read it, but
since
when,
designation.
you said Brent Leday helped do that, I think. Was it Brent? Or who did the historic district for Morgan City?
Well, I know
Bergeron.
Alice was,
Brent Badron.
Alice was around there. She gave me
I
all
used
her
to be on
paper.
that.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
gave me all her
so-
paperwork.
That's a, you sort of wonder Anyway, it was, at the time, it looked like Morgan City had a lot of, like the third most solid historic district, I guess, maybe it was such a dense facility, but they didn't have a lot of intrusion. And I wonder if Leon Kahn's building was considered an intrusion of the store, David Porciola's building or not, I don't remember. But
It's in the district, it's considered a contributing factor,
it is.
yeah, but
I mean, you
That
can have a
building is just odd.
non-conforming building in there, I think you have to have like, what, 80% historic
Oh, yeah.
buildings in the district?
mhm.
Yeah, and that's what we
And
had, we
that's
had
just
a
like-
low intrusion.
Yeah, the way that it's written for the district is that everything at the time that was included in it is considered contributing factor to the district, which when you apply for certain grants through Main Street and stuff like that, it has to be a contributing factor of some kind to the district.
And, I guess what we haven't talked about is how do you get the credits themselves, and so, briefly, you gotta list all the costs that you had in the building. I may have, there's qualified rehabilitation expenses is what they call it. And so it's not, I think I said it before, not landscaping, not fences, not not parking lots, your furniture and equipment, but everything, I put down, pretty much everything I bought during that time period, kind of listed what it was for. Oh, they don't pay for demolition either. Then you start getting in the weeds. I was telling Monica, I don't know how detailed you want to be. You're like carpet that's glued down gets credit, but not tacked. So it's whatever's capital expenditures is supposed is a general rule. But anyway, you submitted that. If it's under 500,000, I just had to swear that I spent that money in the building, and I didn't get. I think it was pretty close to what I submitted. They cut out some things, that I couldn't. They found, they weren't capital expenditures. I had put them in the wrong spot, and they cut them out. The Louisiana Department of Revenue did. They're the ones that issue the credits after you get your certification. Yeah, this is finalized. This is good. We're happy with what you did. Then you go back to them.
You mentioned you put synthetic decking on the porch, we did the same thing, everything out there now is basically synthetic. Does that impact what we would do after that?
I don't know.
I mean, we're not
I
gonna
would
be.
say no, because it wouldn't be included in your application.
Okay.
If you're doing just the interior work and you're not doing anything extra to the outside, I would say it probably wouldn't affect it.
Yeah. There's I sort of wanted the same, thing, because they took it as a, generality of the whole project is historic, and even though you did this, even though you put the synthetic deck down that we can't see, we'll let that go, and they used it as part of the credit, for the, well, no, yeah, that wasn't part of it because it was outside, too. But anyway, they didn't nick you for that, and I wonder how far you go before, if I can do anything else at downstairs. I have to cover that wall down, so the brick that's uncovered. You gotta put sheet rock over it or plaster, and so, yeah.
Historic sheet rock?
Plaster, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. She didn't say that. And that's sort of interesting, because these people got just, seem to have just as much experience as the National Historic people. They work together. They say their guidance is the same, and I didn't really have that, which I didn't feel like it was a hard time on. But you had a question? So every receipt, file your application, your part one, your part two, get your plans, and I it'd be interesting to see who else is doing something out there. I would think it gets to be prettier or better if they got these credits, but let's see. They I think I said financing. Oh, even some of the, the architecture fees counted in there as part of the project. Not your interest that you paid on your loan, which, it's just kinda, it is hit or miss, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think you gotta pay attention to the rules until and if I had to do it over again, I'm just saying, I'd take that project you have and I'd submit it and see what they tell you. If there was some simple thing that was gonna get you credit, I would do it.
How long does it take to get,
It's supposed to be 30
Yeah, yeah.
days. It's for the state, 60 days for the historic people. I saw that somewhere. I know they're gonna get swamped with all this hurricane work, with people coming back in there to do things, I would think.
The state's really, really slow right now.
They're slow, okay. She's laughing at me. But that's what they say, 30 to 60 days. I don't remember how long it took, but it wasn't.
just
They
renovate
want
my
you to have
bedroom
things in on
myself, I
time,
guess.
but they kind of
They-
take their
That's
time
right.
with things.
They give
That's right.
themselves extensions.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, we were in a hurry. I had we were trying to get out of a lease, and so we're rushing, and I'm not waiting for you for the most part.
I think that's a lot of people, I mean, everybody's in a hurry to get their
Mhm.
business up and going, because the longer you wait, the
Right.
less you have work being done, and it
Right.
just becomes a rush.
And there are some architects, if you're interested in doing something like this, some architects, not
No,
necessarily around here, but they're
Right.
familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Eric hired someone from out of town who's familiar with the process,
Well-
and he's able to help and say, yes, this will work, no, that won't work, they'll approve this, they won't approve that.
well, that's worth it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Carrie could do it. Now, I know
Yeah.
Carrie's got a job, with Hallamar, but, Carrie Lage, I'm sure Carl could. Carl's too busy. Probably, to work on something like, some of these little things like this, but it is a big deal. And that's true, that's, again, I was saying, the accountant, if it's over 500,000, I hope we can get a project like that in this area. There's accountants that are qualified, they're supposed to be in the right, supposed to be a CPA, but, I'd see, there's a lady out on the road that does this regularly and can kind of help you fit things into boxes. I think that's the main points, Monica. I don't know, I know she had 2 sections on this, and I'm like, until you get into the project, I think this is the,
I'm gonna try to get somebody to come from the state and come this month to see, from the tax office to see. I mean, I sit through a conference with them annually, and I still fully understand the process, it's just like.
Very broad.
Okay, so I want to thank the Lord, and let's see, I'm gonna ask maybe Roy, you have any thoughts just to share with us before I kind of wrap everything up? Just on that
Well, I'm
official
glad I
part.
came because I was really thinking the wrong way, and until you mentioned it's credits, it's not a grant.
No.
I'm used to writing grants. I'll fill out the paperwork and wait for a check, so this, but it could,
Can you
help.
buy me a grant for my building, my second building, my third building?
you can, and the town could do it, or the development district could do it, but you have to sell the credits, that was a recent thing, but, instead of the town paying 100%, you get to pay 95% or something, 97%.
Let's see, our building, our city hall was built 1953.
Yeah,
That, it would certainly, it would fit 50 years, right? Yes, all the way up to be 50.
and
But-
I would think it's
But
just,
they're not gonna give us anything now because I put a new roof
Well,
on
you
it.
had to, leaking.
that's right, you're done.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's it.
Sorry.
We're out.
so thank you for those comments. I want to thank Hannah for coming, because we weren't quite sure where we were going, and she's a grant writer, and she's here kind of just filling in some things.
That's Hannah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard nice things about her.
Yes, I'm the grant writer at the city right now.
And then I
Fellow grant writers,
Yeah.
can y'all find me a grant?
I think we also recognize that, I think today Beth filled in, because she was willing to share. It was,
Yes.
the river didn't divide us, the river kept us together. So it was nice to hear the expertise shared across the river. Also, the grant that we're doing, it's like, what do we do to help business people? So it's like, maybe, just start off with these tax credits, because you always hear about them. Oh, we're taking advantage of them. And we saw evidence that, for some people it does apply. So with the video, we now have a recording of what Gerard has. So where do we take this grant next? And we were kind of thinking, Gerard does a lot of things, and he's going to be helping us with this grant. So if you have anything in the process, we may be able to help you with a limited, I come from a teaching background, so I hear $800 for the initial is like, goodness gracious, they're hitting them hard. But we may be able to provide partial services. Let's say you want to close on something, or you want to form your business, or you want a title opinion, or you want some help starting this process of the grant application. Or maybe you want to be able to take your business and apply, do some government contracts or something. I don't know if we're gonna do any of that. Any way that George may be able to help you, we may be able to do a little stipend for you, but maybe, I don't know about the.
If you approve it, I guess that's the thing.
Say it again.
If you approve it,
Yeah.
then that's certainly something we can do.
So we would be mailing this out to those of you who signed it. We've got our mail-in.